Six Squirrel Studios.
I was wearing my Austin 316 shirt out at a bar, and I went to the bathroom, and there was a line for the bathroom, so I was waiting online. I finally got into the stall. I peed real quick. I left the stall, and as I was leaving, the next guy in line saw my shirt, and he went, "Stone Cold Steve Austin, hell yeah!" Which, I just kind of laughed or whatever and washed my hands, and I left. But to the other 10 people in line who did not see my shirt, it seemed like this dude's pee routine was to kick open a stall door, go, "Stone Cold Steve Austin, hell yeah," and then start raising hell all over the toilets. Which would make him my favorite person ever.
Or he calls his penis Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Oh,
hell yeah. And then he starts peeing. Oh.
Stone warm.
Lukewarm.
All right, welcome to 10 Bell Pod. I think this is the point where most podcasts give up. So we're doing it.
This is a surprise realization.
I'm Nick Alexander, and I am a fuel-injected suicide machine.
Oh, you gonna cut to me now? Because that's probably my favorite promo of all time.
It's so good.
God, Sid Vicious just losing Sid Justice, because he's doing it in the WWF. Just the fuel-injected suicide machine promo. I want, it's Italian kiss your hand good.
So the guy saying those words is Michael Loving.
It's true.
And we are here in the Manning Cave with Shitty Cannon himself, the Man Scout Jake Manning.
Hey, we're live, pal. Oh, wait, is that another Sid Vicious promo?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, that's another one. All right, sorry. I get him confused sometimes.
I have half the brains that you do. Half the brains are.
All right, we are off topic already. We're not talking about Psycho Sid. Today, we are talking about one of the great women's wrestlers, one of the great managers of all time. She did it all from the territories to the WWE Hall of Fame. It's the sensational, the sensual, the queen, Sherri Martel.
The sister.
Sherri.
Don't you fucking sleep on the sister part. Yeah.
So, Sherri Russell was born February 8th, 1958 in Birmingham, Alabama. Growing up, Sherri loved playing basketball, and she competed in track just like me. I am Sherri Martel. Surprise.
But did you do the high jump and the 50-yard dash like Sherri Martel did?
I did the high jump, the long jump, and the 200 dash.
Oh, so
it was 150. There's no 150.
No, I said I meant to say 50. I think I said 50.
There's no 50.
There's an indoor track.
Yeah, there is. Okay.
Sorry, Nick, the expert on high school track. My fucking bad.
Yeah, let's all defer to Micah, the degenerate gambler who's been on high school track meets. Not the guy whose family actually was a world record holder in a track and field event, and then also had another uncle who participated at a world-class level, who also had a father who was a decathlete, which means he does all the events.
See, that's how they get you, when they pretend to know everything, and then they don't let you be an expert on anything.
Me and Micah arguing about track and field in front of a guy who went to college for track and field. I think I know what mansplaining means now.
Yeah. I know what it is. You guys did it, so.
Oh my God, mansplain. Fuck, that's too perfect.
Sherri said when she was a kid that her mother gave her and her sister the option of either going ice skating or watching wrestling matches with her. After a while, Sherri and her sister wanted to watch wrestling with their mom because they used to fight each other all the time going ice skating. And I say, what is professional wrestling but a mix of fighting and ice skating?
No true words have ever been said on a podcast until now.
It was her mother who took Sherri to her first ever wrestling match in a cattle auction barn, and it was there she met the fabulous Moolah.
Oh, God. Can we, I don't know. It's like sometimes you got to comment on bad jokes, but sometimes you just got to like delete them from fucking human history.
You have no idea how much I laughed about that in my house. Every day I check this.
Yeah, but okay, we might not know that, but we know how much Spencer stared at you, thinking this is the guy. This is the fucking guy.
This silence is everyone unsubscribing from our podcast.
Yeah, Jake was trying to say something and he's given up.
All those times Spencer's like, Nick, you should do more stand-up, and then he told that joke, and she goes, maybe you should do less.
Moolah.
All right.
Sherri said that after seeing live wrestling, the seed was planted and she wanted to become a wrestler. Sherri moved out to Memphis, where she saved up enough money to get her pro wrestling degree. She approached Butch Moore for training. Sherri said when she asked him to teach her how to wrestle, Moore got up from behind his desk, looked her in the eye, and then slapped her in the face as hard as he could. Sherri took the slap and said, "Is that all you got?" After that,
and then she grabbed the microphone and said, "I'm coming for you, mother." Or is that Rambo 2? Is that Rambo 2? I think it's Rambo 2.
I think it's Rambo 2. And we know in Alabama that means they're married.
So after she took the slap, he signed her up and trained her, and goddamn, that is an aggressive business strategy.
It's like I'm gonna be the fucking Inoki of the South.
How many times did he get sued before he found like 2 people to train? So after Memphis, Sherri headed to South Carolina, where she was trained by the flat tire while at training on your way to work of women's wrestling, the fabulous Moolah. Eat more chicken. There she encountered brutal daily training, Moolah robbing her blind, and Moolah likely saying, "Hey, suck this guy's dick so he books me."
Allegedly.
Allegedly. How did we spell it again? I don't know.
And let's bring up the point, the way that Moolah trained these girls. She trained, and Sherri brought this up in a shoot interview, and I don't think this has ever been fully explained. And I don't know if I'm perpetuating an urban legend.
Let's do it.
But let's give it a shot and see what happens. But I definitely know the result. That there was a time that a lot of the females, they would work the right side of the body. Right. The men have always worked the left. I was always told that Moolah would train the girls to work the right side and her girls only. So that way other female wrestlers couldn't work each other, and any girl underneath her tutelage couldn't go out and wrestle anywhere else because they'd be so used to wrestling on the right side. If they wrestled a girl who not under her tutelage, it'd be confusing and they wouldn't have good matches, and no girl could leave her tutelage or be not underneath her thumb anymore because she would wrestle a girl that's from the left side and they'd be all confused.
I know this is probably simplifying it in training and everything, but is it going to be that hard to work the other side?
Oh yeah. George South, like, just dicking around in class one day, he goes, "All right, let's do it like the Mexicans do." Which, well, let's hold on.
Which they work the right side.
Which they work the right side. Let's he just simplified that very fast, and he probably said it very problematic, but he made us do things from the right side one day, and boy was it. And the thing is,
down.
Up was down all over the place, and that was weird. Like, I'd been wrestling like 5 or 6 years at the time, and then just a simple change of like, why don't we do it from the other side? You're like, holy cow, this is completely wrong. So that way, when I see people doing stuff from the wrong side, which I see a lot, unfortunately, I'm just like, how are you able to do that?
And think about this too. Like, I can walk out to a gym and I can hit probably 8 for 10 free throws, no problem. But if you put me under pressure, under the lights, under cameras, under fatigue, I'm gonna probably go 2 for 10.
Do something that you're not accustomed to doing.
It's this muscle memory that would absolutely fuck with you. I think when you're working the opposite side.
But that was always what I heard is Moolah was the one that did that because she didn't want the girls to leave from her tutelage or leave from her control.
She's like putting a signature on all.
And see, and that was something that I was hoping was going to come up when we were doing the Babs and Marva and Ethel podcast, that they would talk about how like the females wrestle the same as the men, which I think there were women that did, but I think Moolah was the one that was like, oh, I'm going to teach these girls all from the right side. So that way they all have to wrestle with me and they can't go anywhere else. And all my girls can wrestle each other. So, because that was what Moolah did, is she just had a whole crop of girls. And when you're a promoter and you're just trying to book female wrestlers for a short period of time, because at that time that's what it was. Like, okay, we're going to bring the women in for 2 weeks, or we're going to bring them in for a month, or however long the territories want them, as opposed to calling 4 different women. Just call it Moolah. I'm like, hey, Lillian, you got 4 girls that can be in Memphis, Tennessee for 6 to 8 weeks. Yeah, I got 2 girls. I'm going to send them away. These are their names. These are their shots. I'll send
them
them
an Amazon Prime package. And
yes, so ships them right out. And then all of a sudden Vince Sr.'s like, hey, I need a women's tag match for Madison Square Garden on this Thursday. Okay, and then send them over here. And then Graham's down in Florida, like, hey, I need 2 females down here. Sure, I'll send them down there.
Really
and then as opposed to him making 2 phone calls, you're just calling it Moolah, and she's sending them all over the place. Where if you got these independent girls that are working the left side, you can't call one of them. And
You have to find 2, right?
Yeah, you have to find 2. Wow. Whereas making the 1 phone call, and she was smart to realize, then I can own female wrestling. And that's basically how... they refer to her as that's a shrewd businesswoman. Is what we used to say about Moolah.
That's a positive spin.
Yeah, that was a positive spin that all of a sudden has spun out of control to her forcing women. She's a pimp. That's what it's deviated to.
After training with Moolah, she spent some time in Japan, which is an important time for any young wrestler.
I watched the Devil Masami match. They did the whole flowers thing, like the crowd. It was just like seeing Sherri in this environment that I'm used to seeing Kenta Kobashi or Manami Toyota. It was just like, what are you doing, Sherri? And I mean, like the Japanese, and I was like, Sherri Martel! And it was just like, I marked out right then and there. But, it was basically a big brawl. Hit her with chairs, throw her into the crowd, did some hard bumps. I mean, those Japanese rings are stiff as shit. She took like a couple of suplexes and a hard splash, and that was it. There was another one. There was an opening to another Japanese match where they give the flowers. Sherri grabs the flowers, does Sherri scream, ah! And then throws them into the crowd. And then a streamer hits her, and she sells it like she got hit by a rock and flips out. It was good stuff if you want to YouTube it.
From Japan, she headed over to Memphis, Tennessee, where she was managed by Jim Cornette. And Sherri was the first person Jim ever managed. While in Memphis, she took part of a 30-person battle royal. She said she had no idea how she was supposed to take a bump in the middle of a ring that was filled with so many people. And that's because you're not supposed to. But when she did, the 6'10", 420-pound Plowboy Frazier tripped over her, landed on her leg, which put her out of action for an entire year. She actually, at that point, planned to just give up wrestling altogether. But she had picked up a wrestling magazine one day, and she decided she was still going to chase that sweet, sweet dragon. So after deciding she wanted to get back into wrestling, she headed up to Vern Gagne's AWA, where she not only wrestled, but she got her first taste of managing. She debuted in AWA on September 28th of 85 at Super Clash in Chicago, and she defeated Candy Devine for the AWA Women's Championship.
Which is always weird. I think AWA did this a lot, and I think even WWF did this a lot, and I'd like to kind of talk through this. It's interesting to me is she won the women's title, and then she went to managing.
Yeah.
It seems backwards in a sense, because later she'd do that, and I know a couple other people. I think Medusa won the AWA title, and then she was exclusively managing Kurt Hennig.
Yeah.
For a while. Like that's a common theme that happens a lot in this area, where I think it's just like you look at it like a career of Trish Stratus. She starts off managing, and then she eventually would become a wrestler. So it's weird to me that here you have this fantastic female wrestler. Let's put the belt on her. Okay, she's really great, awesome. We're really happy with her title run. Let's make her a manager and have her never wrestle again.
Do you think that's because right off the bat it would make her legit, and I guess through the eyes of 80s wrestling promoters, worthy to manage these men?
I'm thinking that's what it is. Like, let's give this guy some credibility, because now former AWA Women's Champion, is now managing them. So I think in kind of a sense it does that, and I think that's what they're going for. Like, oh, not winning the title is your ceiling, but being the second to a man is, which is very, you know, I just want to make that point because it's a trend that I've noticed a couple of times over in some other researches, and I just want to point that out, that I find that odd. Like I get some girl, okay, she's training, but we want to put her on the show. Let's have her manage for a while, and then we'll work her into some matches, and she gets better. She'll start having regular, and that's usually how the progression usually always goes. But for whatever reason, it's backwards here. And maybe that's exactly why. Yeah.
I think just from Sherri, early great heel stuff that she did, she beats Candy Divine, splashes her, she wins the belt, she immediately grabs the belt and starts beating Candy Divine in the head with it. It's just like, we need more sore winner heels, I think. It's
and
just
also
like,
too, the AWA women's title had like these winged like eagle things on there, so like they're kind of like almost like pointy ends. So when she's swinging it, she really could have caused some permanent damage there.
I just love that. It's like, I want it, I have no class.
She'd trade the belt with Candy, winning it a total of 3 times. While in AWA, it was apparently the living legend Larry Zbyszko who not only encouraged her to stay in the wrestling business, but told her she'd be an awesome manager. And she credits managing Buddy Rose and Doug Sommers for helping her along with her wrestling promos and wrestling psychology.
And let's do a little bit of rewind here. When she was under Moolah's camp and control, for lack of a better word, she actually did a spot with Buddy Rose prior to AWA. If the timeline tracks correctly, if I got all my timeline in my head correct, Buddy Rose used to do this thing where he had rosebuds, where it was just these attractive valets that would take off his robe.
Everybody loves Citizen Kane.
Yeah, because he was Playboy Buddy Rose, so he'd have these rosebuds come out with him, and what they would do is they would take usually female wrestlers that were in that weekend for whatever reason, and they would be like one of the multitude valets that would come to the ring with Buddy Rose, and Sherri Martel was one of those rosebuds for Buddy Rose's early 80s, maybe even late 70s run in WWF in Madison Square Garden. And I actually found a picture of Sherri Martel being with Playboy Buddy Rose in the ring, taking off the robe.
Sherri is winning titles. She's getting in-ring experience, managing experience. She's starting to make her name for herself. And that's when she met former AWA wrestler, now turned WWF commentator and Hollywood hotshot, Jesse Ventura. Jesse asked Sherri if she wanted to work for Vince. And a few months later, Blackjack Lanza left her a message to call Vince. And after putting in her 2 weeks with Vern, she'd head up to New York and work for the WWF.
Which was crazy because Sherri said that she turned down a 2-year deal, which was just $500 per week.
For AWA.
For AWA.
To be clear. But I mean, that's the way Vern was. He was very tight with money. Also, too, the AWA territory ran a little bit differently. The summer months were slower. Like, they didn't have a lot of shows, if any at all.
Because it's in Minneapolis, and I bet people are doing other shit because it's warm outside.
Mm-hmm. Right? But when it's cold, people want to do something indoors. Yeah, so like it was always a winter month territory. So like July, they didn't run any shows. So like that's a whole month.
Weren't run any shows?
I mean, I've heard that they might have had like 1 or 2 just to do TV tapings, but they wouldn't do a house show run. You wouldn't have a full schedule of shows. You wouldn't be working 4 or 5 days a week in July in Minneapolis.
So Sherri would make her WWF debut July 24th, 1987, and she would defeat the fabulous Moolah for the WWF Women's Championship. And this match is kind of awkward because it's like, why is this young lady beating up her chain-smoking aunt? I'm sure she has a lot of wrong opinions about the war, but either way, walking into the WWF and beating Moolah it's kind of a push for Sherri right off the bat, especially since Moolah is an evil humanoid alien bent on galactic domination who, after escaping the space dumpster the great sage Zordon put her in, she was able to hold the women's title for 1,000 years. That's the plot for Power Rangers.
Oh.
Sherri would have a nice long run as champion, beating the likes of Debbie Combs and Velvet McIntyre.
Velvet was fucking great.
And don't be hating on Debbie Combs over there. Too.
I just don't know her.
I know her quite well. She enchanted me one day.
You threw that at us.
I met her at Cauliflower Alley Club, and she showed me some pictures of her when she was younger. And I'm like, oh,
Dude,
yeah,
you are
I'm with it.
just throwing all types of shit.
I was like, I am with it. And then like the way she was talking, I'm like, I'm with it now. I am with it now. Debbie, holler at me. Yeah.
So Sherri would be part of the first ever Survivor Series, November 26, 1987, and therefore the first ever women's match at Survivor Series, and there wouldn't be another women's match until 1995.
Let me tell you how fucking awesome Sherri's gear was in that match. She has like this black and white, like I think like a jumpsuit thing.
Nope.
I was dating a female wrestler at the time, and I remember her going, "Ooh, I gotta have me that." Like I almost made that as a gif for the girl that I was dating, just because she was such a Sherri fan.
Yeah.
But I saw that gear, I'm like, God damn, that's some good gear. Like that's always a thing. Like with female wrestlers, the idea of like getting just like absolutely amazing gear. Where at this time a lot of them are in one pieces and focusing on that. But like just seeing this in this context right here, obviously like. You know, what we know Sherri later is really going over the top and going that extra mile on something. This is a perfect example of that with Sherri right here. That black and white gear from Survivor Series 1987. Go out of your way to see that. Also, too, the match is incredible.
The
Jumping Bomb Angels are fucking amazing.
They are so good. The crowd's all over them, too. They're popping like hell.
And I think it was Leilani Kai did this one move that I don't think I've ever seen anybody else. It's her opponent was in an electric chair drop position or an Nakano roll position, like the girl sitting up on her shoulders. She's getting close to the ropes. She bends over and gives like a stun gun with this girl who's on her shoulders and then falls back into an electric chair. It's like a slingshot electric chair drop. I was like, holy shit, people are doing that today. Like I was like, wow.
The Jumping Bomb Angels are 30 years ahead of their time for WWF.
Yeah, they were amazing.
So fucking good.
And then Jimmy Hart's like, I mean, I forgot that like he's the manager of the women's tag champs.
Glamour girls, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, the glamour girls. I got you, baby.
In this match, Sherri would get beat with a pinning combination by Velvet McIntyre, and I believe that would that would set up a house show run between the two. Yeah. And the Jumping Bomb Angels eventually get the win for Moolah's team.
Because if they didn't get any food that night.
Yeah. After 15 months as champion, Sherri would lose her belt to Rockin' Robin October 8th, 1988 in Paris, France.
Good damn match.
Oh my God, it's so good.
It's really great.
Like, Robin is great, Sherri is great, the back and forth is good, Bobby and Gorilla are just crushing on commentary.
The best part was not only did Sherri lose her belt, but Bobby lost a restaurant meal bet to Gorilla.
In France.
In France. I mean, Bobby's probably out like a good $200.
I think this is my favorite Sherri wrestling match.
Dude, it's so good.
And then it's shot so weird because the venue they were at in France, if they did the normal heart camera shot, they had these bright-ass lights above the ring. And if they did the normal shot, it was like glare. It was just glare. So they had to shoot it from all these weird angles you never get from WWF. And that made it so much more interesting, on top of it being like this amazing match.
Well, and they probably used like international crews, so they probably didn't have their regular crews over there too. Like I don't think they brought cameramen over. They probably used local cameramen. But question, do you guys know who Rockin' Robin's father is?
Ooh, oh man, I want to know this. Hold on, let me.
You don't know? You don't know her family lineage?
Terry Taylor, the Red Rooster.
Yeah, that's where I went to. Robin, Rooster.
That should have been a gimmick. Sorry, go on.
She is the daughter of Grizzly Smith, and she is the sister of Jake the Snake Roberts.
Oh, what? Jesus.
What?
And I believe Sam Houston as well.
Holy shit.
Yep. That's that whole little family.
After that, Sherri would pretty much work house shows exclusively with Robin, as the WWF, at least on TV, got rid of the women's division altogether. Divas Revolution.
Yeah.
But luckily for Sherri, she had learned to manage in the AWA, and after WrestleMania 5, she get in the middle of one of the biggest wrestling feuds in history. At WrestleMania 5, Hogan won the title from Macho Man because I believe in '89 they put the belt on whoever could do the most cocaine. Since Elizabeth took Hogan's side on the Yoko Ono wing of the Mega Powers, Macho Man Randy Savage needed a new manager, and in stepped sensational Sherri. And Sherri was a great manager. She kept all the focus on the wrestler while at the same time enhancing and adding to any situation or promo thrown at her. And since she was a great wrestler, she could bump her ass off as a manager.
Yeah.
She was intense, she was loud, and she was awesome.
Especially all of those when Macho Man had to tag with Zeus and the promos that they had to cut for that cage match and her climbing around. Like, that's just go out of your way to watch it. It's incredible.
Also, please look up the Arsenio Hall episode that they both appeared on. Sherri starts it off and she basically dry humps Arsenio. It's sexual assault. But then Zeus comes out and they go above and beyond what I think it turns into for just promoting a pay-per-view. Zeus, like, scares people off the set. The cameraman shit in his pants. They do the whole shaky cam thing. Sherri, Zeus, Arsenio. It's good shit.
And the match they were promoting was SummerSlam, where Hulk Hogan and the Webster's Dictionary example of nepotism, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, would face Sherri, managed by a team of Macho Man Randy Savage and Zeus. Zeus from No Holds Barred. Zeus, the greatest gimmick ever, based on a straight-to-VHS movie. He was Debo in Friday?
Yes.
Yeah. Wait. Can we get the sound?
And he may be wrestling Freight Train sometime in the future. I don't know.
Oh, fuck yeah.
I don't know.
The weirdest thing about Zeus
depends if he comes off his price. He's got to come off his price first.
Is this real? Are you talking for real?
Oh, I'm releasing. The promo's probably already out by the time this episode is released.
Fuck. Sidebar. Look up Zeus wrestled Abdullah the Butcher in Puerto Rico.
No way.
Yeah, there's Zeus versus Abdullah the Butcher in Puerto Rico. He's like, you know what? I really love this. I'm gonna wrestle Zeus I'm gonna wrestle Abdullah in Puerto Rico.
I bet he changed his fucking mind real quick.
Not to correct you. I guarantee it wasn't like, hey, I love this. It was more like, hey, Tiny, this is your agent. This man named Carlos Colon. He's giving me a whole shit ton of money for you to come down and wrestle again. Do you want to do that?
Cut scene to Zeus just with a fork shoved up his ass, and he's like, I regret this. For this match, Hogan brings out Elizabeth before the match, who comes out to a huge pop and Macho Man's music. Talk about taking everything in the split. She took the man's intro music.
Is this wrestling cuckolding? Is that what this is?
Basically. And I will be frank here. This match is poop. It is a poop match.
Wow, I'm shocked that it would be that, Nick. Holy fuck! Thanks for the mind-blowing news release.
Promo work though, A++.
10%.
You bought the pay-per-view.
As far as Sherri in this match, you know, she's cheering for a guy. She's teasing showdowns with Elizabeth. She pulls Hogan's leg on a suplex. Towards the end of the match, Sherri is dumped into the ring, losing her loaded purse, which Hogan picks up like a proper Southern belle and hits Zeus with. Body slam, leg drop, inward, Hogan's team wins. After the match, Hogan atomic drops Sherri into an Elizabeth bitch slap, and then Brutus cuts her hair, which is like the worst day of this poor woman's life. But since it's 80s wrestling, the crowd pops the roof off the place.
Oh, and if I know anything about Sherri, she loved every second of it.
Yeah. I always like that if a heel hit a woman, they would like call the police, but if a face hits a bad woman, they're just like, it be like that sometimes. Like, it's just. Although Sherri was a manager and the women's division was off TV, she was still working house shows as a wrestler. I assume that's how she was making her money, like on the regular.
I'm sure she was paid to be a manager as well.
Yeah, well, that too, but you know, it's just TV. She'd only get paid for TV, right?
No, but she'd be there in the house shows as well.
Okay.
You know, I mean.
What is the break? I mean, like, I always wonder, like, are managers
specifically in Vince's structure of how he paid people.
Yeah,
What would
like
be the
how-
break for a manager?
Would some wrestlers think they're not performing or like taking bumps, or if they
Well, if she was a part of the local promos that were promoting the house show, which I'm sure she would,
Well, yeah,
because that's why she would be managing. She's part of a package deal of her and Macho Man. So if her and Macho Man are
Yeah,
cutting
so she was
promos
making money.
and she's murdering it that way, and if Macho Man's in the main event of said town, she's the manager of the main event, I'm sure she's taken quite well of, maybe making more than what she would have made if she was in ring in the second match.
Well, Sherri would get back into wrestling in some of these house shows, and she'd start wrestling singles matches against Sapphire. And then later, she'd team up with Macho King, and Queen Sherri and him would face Sapphire with Dusty Rhodes, leading to Wrestlemania 6. Now, at Wrestlemania 6, Sherri and the Macho King would face Sapphire and the American Dream. Before the match again, Dusty gets on the mic. He calls out Elizabeth, who comes out again to Macho's music and a huge, huge, huge pop. I dare you to find a match with more top rope double axe handles than this match. Macho does like 15 of them. It's nuts.
That's his bread and butter.
Sherri's back in the ring for a televised event. She's doing the best she can with Sapphire, who is no Dynamite Kid. The match ends when Sapphire schoolyard ducks behind Sherri. Elizabeth pushes her. Sapphire rolls her up, and we get to hear that sweet, sweet American Dream theme. Sherri would stay by Macho's side throughout the next year, and eventually they get in the feud with the Ultimate Warrior. The two of them would even cost Ultimate Warrior his WWF Championship, attacking him in a match with Sergeant Slaughter at the Royal Rumble, and this led to what was billed as the first ever WWF career versus career match at WrestleMania 7. So Warrior comes out, he snorts 300 milligrams of HGH off a baby in the front row.
Yeah, it's fine.
And then he and Macho Man put on an amazing match, the best of Warrior's career for sure.
It probably is.
So we're going to cover Macho Man, we're going to cover Warrior, we're going to talk about this match. So keeping the attention on Sherri for this episode, she's all over this match. She gets in the ring early and Warrior throws Savage at her. She gets some cheap shots in on Warrior on the outside. And then she's part of one of the biggest spots of the match when she dives off the top rope, shoe in hand, but Warrior ducks out of the way and she clocks Macho Man. Warrior and Macho, they're working their asses off. Sherri is working her ass off, bumping and screaming and fighting across the screen. Eventually, Warrior gets the win. After the match, Sherri, who is now out of a job because her client is out of a job, attacks the injured Macho Man.
Oh, God.
However, Elizabeth was in the crowd, so she runs in, yanks Sherri up by her weave, and tosses her out of the ring. And after Macho and Elizabeth reunite in a Disney Pixar emotional magical moment, and
You cried. It's really good.
I did not cry.
Yeah, you cried.
Cried like a bitch.
Well, you want to cry some more? Everybody involved with that match is.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Think about that. I'm not sure who the
I
referee
was
is.
about to ask who the ref is.
Well,
Everyone.
we mentioned him on this podcast, so he's dead now.
That's true. Donald Trump.
But, man, I know we're going to talk about it eventually, whoever we cover first, but what a good goddamn match.
Oh, it's so... I mean, it really is. The drama, the emotion. Damn, it's good.
So later on that same WrestleMania card, the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase faced Virgil with Rowdy Roddy Piper. Ted loses via count out, and then a fight breaks out with Piper and Ted, and he starts wailing on him with a crutch. Sherri flies out of the back, saving Ted DiBiase, attacking Piper, and from there she would manage Ted well into 1992.
Her teddy bear.
After leaving Ted, she ended up managing Shawn Michaels, and she'd even do Shawn's theme singing.
It's really good.
Michaels at the time was a self-absorbed douchebag. Sorry, Michaels' gimmick at the time was being a self-absorbed douchebag.
Watch your mouth.
Live the life.
Don't you besmirch the name. As we all know on this podcast, I am anything if I'm not a Click apologist.
So, as part of Shawn's gimmick, he would admire himself before and during matches in a mirror. But before a match, Shawn's ex-partner, Marty Jannetty, would hop out of the crowd wearing a shirt with playing cards on it that just says, guns. he attacks Shawn and grabs the mirror from Sherri. And when Marty swung it at Shawn, he pulled Sherri in front of him, and goddamn, he clocked the shit out of her.
She bumped her, bumping.
As Marty Jannetty has such a bad history with reflective surfaces he's not doing cocaine off of.
Oh.
After being hit with the mirror, Sherri was completely off TV until the 1993 Royal Rumble when Shawn faced Marty. Sherri would be in a neutral corner for the match, but eventually get into the ring. She swung at Shawn with her shoe, but Shawn ducks. She hits Marty. HBK hits a super kick and wins. I listened to a shoot from Marty about this match, and apparently Vince thought this match was so bad, Marty Jannetty got fired over it. So him and Shawn had been working out this match at house shows and just burning the building down every night, just killing it. However, last second, they shoved Sherri into this match, which threw off the pacing and the spots and the flow and apparently made it awful. Shawn blamed it all on Marty, saying he was drunk, so Vince fired him. And that would awkwardly end the angle between the three of them.
I kind of believe that second one. Kind of what I know about Marty. That seems more that one.
And that's why we never got Marty versus Shawn at a WrestleMania.
Oh, man.
So next, Sherri would team up with Tatanka, who would face Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 9, which led to Shawn Michaels having a new manager, Luna Vachon. Luna would attack Sherri at WrestleMania 9, setting up what should have been an epic feud. We talked about this on our Luna Vachon episode, and it really sucks it didn't get this proper ending between two of the greatest women's wrestlers of this or any era.
It was just house shows and like Wrestling Challenge or something.
Yeah,
it was bad.
It didn't get a proper ending because Sherri would soon be fired for doing too many drugs.
Which she openly admits and she's sorry for, and
that's what's so amazing about the promo. Yeah, she just owns up to everything about drugs.
Roughly, her comment on her drug use is saying it cost her a great job, friendships too, and at the time, she believed that drugs made her a better performer. She was unable to see what everyone else was seeing, and at the time, she was stubborn, she was a rebel, and she didn't care what she did. After her WWF release, she had a short stop in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, reuniting with her old pal Jim Cornette.
Which is not Smoky Mountain, but it might as well be because Sonny shows up in the match. But there's an NWA match at this point that's on YouTube where it's Jim Cornette versus Sherri Martel, and the stipulation is it's a spanking match, and if you lose the match, you get spanked. I don't want to spoil it, but Jim Cornette loses, but then somehow holds Sherri down and spanks her, and we don't get to see Cornette getting spanked. It's total bullshit.
I'm not saying anything. I'm still...
So in 93, Sherri dropped by ECW, where she managed Shane Douglas.
Oh, and know what else she did in ECW? She, and I don't know exactly what happened. I don't think it like ever translated to a match, but she did like this angle, and I think it was to build to a match. And it was like this shoot angle thing. It was with Medusa. And it was at this fan convention. And this was on ECW TV.
Yeah.
And when I was dating a female wrestler that loved Sherri, and I was telling her about this, and she goes, I've never heard of this before. I'm like, well, I got to go to the office and get the DVD of this. I got to show you this. And basically it was like this fan convention. It was one of those, I think, I'm trying to remember what the guy's name was. It was the same promoter that booked Kerry Von Erich in one of his last matches, and like he wore a mask and pretended he was someone else, and the guy would always book all. I'm drawing a blank on who that guy is, but it was this big fan convention, and it had Medusa there, and Medusa at the time was with Greg the Hammer Valentine, and they filmed this whole thing where Medusa was sitting down at like this, it was like in a hotel lobby, and like fans were kind of around, and they both had microphones. And I can't remember if Sherri walked in or what it was, but these two women were sitting in like these chairs that are obviously like a hotel like lobby area outside of like a ballroom, whatever, and they're talking. And Sherri was like talking shit about Medusa and like, oh yeah, like you're real good, Medusa. Yeah, you really come a long way and stuff like that. Yeah, you really, you hadn't done much in the States. You know, I've been with WWF. Like, I've been to WrestleMania before. Medusa, I guess you did some stuff in Japan, and I guess people are pretty excited about that.
I don't know.
And he goes, I know you're a big deal over there, but you want to know why you're a big deal over there? That's because all the women are beep. And I've disputed this with the girl I was dating at the time, because I'm pretty sure they're saying the whole reason that you're so big over there is because all the women fuck all the men over there. She's like, no, I think she said that all the women are fucking each other over there, because that's also a thing over there, that some of the Japanese female wrestlers, they're not allowed to date anybody. So you have all these women, they're usually living and around each other.
Deal with what they got.
Yes, it comes like a situation, and they fall for each other, and they become attracted to each other because they're all fit, athletic, good looking, all understand each other's circumstances, and everybody has needs in a certain sense, and that. But I always felt that I thought I heard the words "the fucking on the men," because I do know that some female wrestlers did hook up with some of the male wrestlers as well, but it could go either way. But I just, like I said, the only reason you were successful because everybody was fucking everybody over there, and I just love that they put that on TV.
You know, it's a shoot when the beep is beep.
Yeah.
It's long.
Exactly. It was like a long beep, and keep in mind, like, this ECW at this time was, I mean, I think they might have still been using Don Morocco and Jimmy Snuka at this period of time. Like, this is Eastern Championship Wrestling. This is like before it's like hardcore.
Before Douglas threw the belt down. Shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's that type of stuff. Yeah. So, like, I always point as, like, this is when, like, it got really edgy. Yeah. So, like, Sherri was like at the forefront of making ECW edgy. And I always point to that, like, right there, because I remember going through all the tapes and converting them over to a digital format and looking through them, and they were all very much like I said, Don Morocco and Eddie Gilbert, and then all of a sudden Sherri pops up, and then this happens, and I'm like, Jesus Christ! Like,
yeah, that's fuck, man. I haven't seen that. I gotta watch that.
You should. I highly recommend it.
So eventually, Sherri would wind up in WCW on the recommendation of Kevin Sullivan.
Because Sullivan was in ECW at the time too, and he kind of pulled her from that, right?
Yeah, because like Sullivan was coming in with, I think they were using the Headhunters and
they
like
did
Wing
ECW.
Canamera. That's when like Sullivan was like just fucking murdering, like, I think it was a Wing Canamera, like, and Smoky Mountain, and just fucking getting tied up in the woods and cutting like weird ass fucking promos, and then going to ECW and hitting somebody in the balls with fucking monkey wrenches and shit like that.
God bless.
Bringing over Hugh Morris and telling him to fucking do a moonsault in ECW, and Miguel Perez Jr., whatever fucking shit was going on there.
Her original WCW plans were to manage Kevin and Dave Sullivan against Missy Hyatt and the Nasty Boys, but after Hyatt was fired in February of '94, they decided to go with no managers at all. There was some discussion for Sherri being a wrestler, but because of her drug use and her body breaking down a little bit, WCW decided against it.
Also, dude, WCW really didn't have a lot of female wrestlers anyways. Like, and that's a tough thing about this era. Is I don't know if like Moolah like stopped training women as much as possible. Like, she didn't have as many girls under her camp, and also too, whatever female talent out there was probably being allocated to the Glows and the other promotions that were out there, and there was enough girls out there that were getting suitable training that Moolah lost that stranglehold that she had over female wrestling.
And when Moolah's pipeline kind of run to WWF and not WCW, so WCW never really had access to it, because Moolah, if she had anybody, would send it there. But then female wrestling was segmented because they'd have these all-female wrestling promotions. And so, set on becoming a manager again, on April 23rd, 1994, Sherri made her debut on WCW Saturday Night under the name Sensuous Sherri. In an interview with Mean Gene, she said her goal was to find her a man who could bring her the WCW Heavyweight Championship. Jake will marry the first girl who makes that her Tinder bio.
Well,
Hey, can we point out how horny Mean Gene was in that debut for Sherri?
Also,
She kisses him, and he's just like, whoa. You can see his bald head just get harder and pointier.
so will mine when I find a woman's Tinder bio that is it sex, muscle, and diamonds.
There you go.
from our.
You hit it. You didn't even know.
Okay, I want to make sure I got all three of them. Okay, so I got a little callback.
Woman Scout, does that do anything for you?
No, I'm not.
Work related, you know.
There's so many women like, oh, should I dress up like a Girl Scout for you? No, I dress up more like a Girl Scout than you do. We're fine, okay? Like just.
I really like the possibility of trying that out for a couple weeks.
Just nice black undies with a nice trim. That's all I fucking need, man. Like simple man, simple needs.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna fight you if you want to express yourself lingerie wise, but I mean, really, at the end of the day, if you just nice black bra, nice black panties, you know what I'm saying? Because if I get that point with you as a woman that you've felt comfortable enough with me to display that in front of me, obviously you are a woman of intelligence, grace, diamonds, muscle, and sex. And I've already been aroused intellectually, and I will obviously be aroused physically as well.
Me and Nick are the ones drinking tonight, by the way.
I'm just speaking from the heart, my friend.
So on June 24th, at Clash of Champions 27, the WCW World Heavyweight Championship and the WCW International World Heavyweight Championship would be unified in a match between Ric Flair and the man they call Sting. Sherri walks out before the match starts to reveal that she has some Sting face paint on. There's a spot in this match where apparently they learned nothing from Rick Rude because Sting dives to the outside and Flair pulls Sherri in front of him.
So good.
And her head is like a 1/10 of an inch from just getting decapitated on the guardrail.
Sting destroys her. He totally her body is in frame and you see her and then Sting's body and she disappears. It's just it's just nuts. A total
So Sherri pulls herself up and while Sting is checking in on her, Flair rolls him up and unifies the titles. After the match, she helps Rick attack Sting and Shivani is like, it was a setup. Or Sting just murdered her 10 seconds ago and maybe she's mad about that. But Sherri hits Sting with a top rope splash. She did this a lot in WCW. And then Hogan comes out to save Sting with this brand new badass theme song by Ace Frehley. At Bash at the Beach, Sherri would manage Ric Flair as he faced Hulk Hogan, who was making his WCW in-ring debut. So Sherri already all up in some wrestling history again. We'll also get into that actual match when Jake finally snaps and murders Ric Flair. But Shaq comes out to present the new WCW title belt.
Sorry, Jake just did a side glance look at me like, it's going to happen.
What are you talking about? I would never. I have no motive.
Your entire stand-up set is incriminating evidence. Shaq brings the new title belt out. Mr. T comes out with Hulk, proving he's not racist. In the pre-match, Michael Buffer compares this match to the moon landing. You want to know why? Because they're both a work brother.
That's true.
Eventually, Sherri throws Flair some brass knuckles before Mr. T drags her away. Flair decks Hogan, but he still kicks out. Hulk's up, comeback, leg drop, and new WCW heavyweight champion.
It's just like every big wrestling celebrity.
It would just cram it into one match.
Everything.
So Sherri more or less wrap up her Flair managerial duties at 94's Halloween Havoc and Flair's rematch against Hulk Hogan in a steel cage career versus career match reffed by Mr. fucking T. It's a fun match. It's good.
Fuck you. It's a fucking amazing match because of fucking Sherri fucking Martel and put some goddamn.
You guys got that.
Oh, fuck. Sherri is fucking unbelievable in this match. Hulk Hogan is Hulk Hogan, whatever.
Nick.
Ric Flair, nothing, my personal feelings aside. Ric Flair, regarded one of the best wrestlers of all time.
Yeah.
This fucking match right here, Sherri is bumping beat for beat with Ric Flair at one point in time. Like the entire end of this match, Sherri is fucking on point with Nature Boy Ric Flair at every fucking turn, and she is doing that shit barefoot and in fucking lingerie. And that is fucking incredible. Looking attractive as all get out.
Yeah,
and
totally.
Still keeping up with 16-time world heavyweight champion Ric Flair. Fuck you if you don't fucking like this match. It gets put over the fucking line of good matches solely because of Sensational Sherri.
I feel really shitty that I didn't watch this one in preparation.
You
Now,
fucking need to.
I think I'm just gonna put it at number 1 on my list, or Jake's gonna beat me up.
I haven't seen the Bash of the Beach match. I did end up seeing the Halloween Havoc match for How Did This Get Booked?
Yeah.
And when I saw it, I go, I don't need to see the first one.
Yeah.
This match is incredible
Yeah.
solely because of Sherri, because she's amazing. I can't. This is exactly why I was excited about this episode. I mean, it capitulates a little bit, like the ability that Sherri has to be credible as a star, credible as somebody who could be physically impactful in a match.
Right.
Also extremely attractive, but also too in her own way, not in a like, oh, obviously, like Pam Anderson is obviously attractive, but the fact that she is her own entity and she is her own sense of style, and she's attractive in that. And somehow that makes it that much more attractive because it is uniquely her.
Yeah.
And at the same time, too, she is a physical, impactful threat to Hulk Hogan, and I buy it and I believe it. Just she's climbing a fucking cage and she's getting her clothes ripped off while she does it, and she's not falling off the cage. She's jumping off the fucking cage. Holy fucking shit. Just love. That's all I have to say. Just love for her on a respect level, love for her on all levels that I could possibly have love for a human being. That's what this match is.
And it really shows you how a manager can impact a match. I mean, you're talking about Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair, two of the biggest wrestlers, and then Sherri Martel steals the show as a manager.
Oh,
and
yeah.
If you just use people correctly, you get this amazing total product that's great.
Yeah, it just puts it over the top. And also, too, another thing that I think it was about this time, because this is like shortly after, like, I know Flair was dealing with vertigo. I don't know if this was. Yeah, he had vertigo. I think I think it was in the WWF. He was dealing with it for a short period of time, and it was and I might as well bring it up since we're talking about like Sherri and Flair. And I remember Flair talking about this in his interview. Like he was talking about how he had vertigo so bad he couldn't he was like stuck in Nashville, and like Sherri took care of him.
Damn.
You know, like he couldn't fly, and he just needed somebody to kind of take care of him because he couldn't stand up for long periods of time. And she was like, "Yeah,
up? Fuck.
yeah." He's like, "Yeah, I'll make sure that you're fed, you're taken care of." And basically, like, you know, Rick's like, "Yeah, like Sherri, I was stuck in Nashville, and Sherri just nursed me back to health. Like, if it wasn't for her, I was just been stuck." You know, that's just one of the things about her. Not only could she do all the things with that match, but outside of the ring, she's somebody you can put your trust in.
Right.
To take care of you when things go bad.
I was trying to fit this in earlier, but she talks about how when she worked with Macho Man or Ted DiBiase or HBK, she always contacted their wife or girlfriend or whatever it was at the time to make sure that they were good, to make sure there wouldn't be any jealousy issues, because she knows how the road is, she knows how rumors get started, and she knows that she needs to kind of set up a relationship with the person they're going to help each other make money, and she knew that she needed to talk to their wife just to get on that good plane. She emphasized that so much that just like Sherri I just want to be sure because we're cool. And are we cool? Cool.
And that's the thing too, like if you reach out to that person and make that step, like, look, I'm going on my way to say this. I don't have to say this, but I want to make this very clear. I'm here to make money. I'm treating this as a business. I don't want you to think anything other. I don't want all those assumptions that you have.
Yep.
Put those aside, and this is what I'm here to do.
Yep.
Through everything I heard, Sherri is super loved. She had her demons. She had her problems with things. But at the end of the day, everyone vouches for her. Everyone loves her. Everyone respects her. And that's a hard thing to do in, 20, 30 years of pro wrestling. So after managing Flair, Sister Sherri would start managing Harlem Heat, sucker.
God damn right she fucking did. This is the Sherri that I probably saw the most.
Yeah.
Like I it's all bits and pieces of me during the WWF days because it was very hard for me to watch it. But when I was watching wrestling consistently, the way that I regularly saw Sherri was her managing Harlem Heat.
She said she loved being paired with Harlem Heat. She said they always had her back. She always had theirs. Booker T even gave her away at one of her weddings. She managed them to 7 WCW tag team titles. Guys, favorite Sherri managing Harlem Heat moments?
My favorite Sherri memory of her managing Harlem Heat, I'm surprised you guys bring this up, is the Booker T promo.
I was about to bring
we're coming after you.
Sir. And then she kind of laughs and pats him. Is that right?
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Is he, and you see Booker T's like, I screwed up royally. I mean, face palms with both hands. He's embarrassed. And the thing that I love the most is Sherri just puts her hand on Booker T's shoulder. Dude. In the moment where he feels the most embarrassed and ashamed, she's like, hey, you're still on TV. It's gonna be, just calm down. It's gonna be okay. Yeah. Just that calm, like that tells me everything you need to know about Sherri Martel. Yeah. And somebody's worst moment, most embarrassing moment, how is she? She wasn't pulling away. She moved closer to a person. Yeah. And that's what I think of with her. And I remember doing a shoot interview with Stevie Ray and talking about Sherri. And they were talking about how like she was in the company, they didn't know how to use her, and they were talking about putting a manager with Harlem Heat, and they didn't know, and they kind of were like, oh, "Give us Sherri," and they were just thinking like, no other woman's gonna work unless it's a woman who you could believe could kick somebody's ass.
And then she's got the Macho DiBiase HBK history, like.
Yeah, she had all these main event guys, and Harlem Heat obviously was on the come up. So you put Sherri with Harlem Heat, that gives them instant credibility, and she did a tremendous amount for them for that. Because when I recognized Sherri and I saw her come out with these guys, and I go, "Oh, those Harlem Heat, man! I got to pay attention to them because Sherri Martel's with them and Sister Sherri, and
that's real fire."
Yeah, and when you see those three come out, like you believe that all three of them could kick your ass, and that's what you want. I think that's what made that package so perfect.
Total badasses all the way through.
With managing Harlem Heat, Sherri would get into a little love affair with Colonel Robert Parker until October of '96 when Harlem Heat fired him and Sherri had a match with him at World War III. And she beat that ass wearing a red dress. The best part of this match is Dusty Rhodes just marking the fuck out when she hits him with a flying clothesline. She's like, she clotheslined him! She clotheslined him!
Oh my God, she clotheslined him!
Good.
And then we just need to point out, I told Nick to watch this the other night, but it's so good. There's a Clash of Champions. Just look up Colonel Parker and Sherri wedding. They do the old Whitechapel roll up and get your wedding in Vegas. Colonel Parker has spent all his money at the casino, and he's out of money, so he can't even pay for the wedding. So then he tells Sherri, and then Sherri gets all mad, and then Medusa hops out of a RV or something, and then they start fighting. There's wedding cake everywhere. The best moment is where everybody starts slipping in the wedding cake, including Booker T. Everybody breaks kayfabe, and they just start laughing their fucking ass off.
Like laughing.
And it's just a fucking dumpster fire. I feel like everyone's drunk. Mean Gene is burying everyone at every opportunity he can. There's a line where Sherri goes in the back of the limo and Mean Gene does the old, I'm sure that's not the first time she's been in the back of a car. It's like, God damn, Mean Gene, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's probably not the first time she's been in the back of a car.
So Sherri continued managing Harlem Heat until July 7th, 1997 at a taping of Nitro when Sherri said she became bored, so she took 4 somas without eating anything before that. And while waiting on a meeting with Eric Bischoff, she took 4 more somas. So all she remembers is she was in Eric's office. She tilted her head back and slid down the wall right in front of her boss. So she was fired the next day, which happened to be her birthday. So after being fired by the 2 major companies at a time, Sherri would take some time off. She'd hit some random indies. Early in 99, she competed in a mixed tag match for Apocalypse Wrestling Federation.
Ever.
Where she got pinned by Missy Hyatt, which is weird because usually you hear stories about Missy Hyatt getting pinned. Am I right, fellas?
Oh, you hackney fuck.
Touche.
Listen, if I'm doing that Missy Hyatt roast this fall, I'm not hiring you as a joke writer. Just because I was going to ask, but I'm
Is
now.
that a real thing?
Possibly.
Oh, man.
Well, now I'm sad. In October 99, she appeared on Heroes of Wrestling, a pay-per-view where she managed Greg Valentine in a match against George Still. Heroes of Wrestling pops up in a lot of these. Do you know anything about it?
Oh yeah, it was my 3rd episode of How Did This Get Booked. It is considered the worst pay-per-view of all time. And
Where were those at?
Oh, so it's one. It's just
one
pay-per-view.
pay-per-view.
Oh, and it pops up in everyone for just the
wait, is
worst
that
moment.
the Jake the Snake?
Yeah,
Jake the Snake
Jake the
masturbate.
Snake. It's just-
I got 22.
That one, correct.
In 2000, she'd have a couple of actual matches in WCW. The first, January 19th on WCW Thunder, where she'd have a match against Medusa and lose. And on her final WCW appearance, she had a match with Mona, which she also lost.
Which is Molly Holly, and she talked about how she was just blown away about how good Molly Holly was. She's like, "Oh man, this girl's good!" And spoke very highly of her. And I know what I know about Molly Holly. I'm sure she cherishes that comment for the rest of her life. Also, too, about that time, Sherri Martel was working for IW Mid-South, and she did a couple shots there with Ian Rotten. And also, too, some of the other people that were in the locker room about that time were Colt Cabana and CM Punk. And Colt shared this story before, in that when Sherri was in the locker room, like, she was always a blast and great to hang out with. And also, too, that was also during the time that people from the Jerry Springer show were looking to cast professional wrestlers to play some of the people on the Jerry Springer show.
Wow.
And they were like, you got to, pitch a story and we'll see if we can do it. And they pitched a story where I think it goes that Sherri was Colt's mom and Punk was sleeping with his best friend's mom. And that was going to be the episode of Jerry Springer. And that's what they pitched, that Sherri would be the mom and she'd be sleeping with Punk.
Man, I wish this existed.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
But I think they turned it down, or they realized that, oh, no, people would recognize who Sherri is and the jig would be up.
But then imagine that later, 5 years, 10, or now,
Yeah.
that would it'd have 50 million views.
No, it'd be the best thing ever.
Yeah, it'd be insane. And I think if I remember the details of the story, I think that was one of the things. But yeah, there's a pretty cool match. I think Sherri wrestled Lexi Fife in an IW Mid-South match. I think you should go out of your way and see that, because I think Lexi Fife is amazing. If I'm remembering this correctly, I'm pretty sure it's Lexi Fife versus Sherri Martel, because I think we talked about it when Lexi Fife's Diva Diaries that we recorded. So I think that's the match.
The only thing I remember when I'm looking up, I can't remember who she wrestled, but I remember seeing that Sherri did a dog collar match and a false count anywhere match. It might have been with Lexi, but I just remember it was like, oh shit, she's in a dog collar match and a false count anywhere match, because like Ian's like, do some crazy shit.
Yeah, because he just had that building and like, please set yourself on fire.
Yeah, I don't know.
Skip ahead to 2005. She made a WWE appearance. Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle were building their feud to WrestleMania 21 when Kurt comes out to Shawn's music on a March 24th episode of SmackDown, followed by Sensational Sherri. Kurt would eventually do a parody of Shawn's music called Sexy Kurt, and I hate myself, but it was hilarious. However, the funny situation turns bad when Kurt put Sherri in an ankle lock, which she sells like a god. About a year later, she was inducted into the 2006 WWE Hall of Fame by Ted DiBiase. There's some douchebag in the crowd screaming the entire time because sometimes wrestling fans are assholes. But she looked great. She was having fun, kind of slipping in and out of character her whole speech.
She buries Bischoff in front of Bischoff.
And you just wish she would have used this money, this exposure to a new, younger crowd, and this opportunity to get her shit together. But tragically, later that year, Sherri Martel would work for TNA Wrestling.
Oh.
She did a quick backstage vignette offering her managerial services to the glorious Bobby Roode, and that would be her last ever television appearance. Sadly, on June 15th, 2007, Sherri Martel died at her mother's house in McCalla, Alabama. She was only 49 years old. The toxicology report stated that she had died of an overdose. Final thoughts on Sensational Sherri.
I was actually lucky enough to meet Sherri Martel. It was extremely brief. It was at a show in Kingsport, Tennessee. She was writing to a show with Tom Pritchard, and she was managing on the show. And I remember Tom walking in the locker room and asked, like, "Hey, is everybody dressed?" And we're like, "Oh, yeah." And he goes, "I'm going to bring Sherri in." And I didn't know. I wasn't for sure. I didn't know Sherri was even on the show.
Sherri, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, here comes Sherri Martel. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Sister Sherri. And I remember her going around to everybody in the locker room and introducing herself and doing this very simple and small thing that I try and do today, is where she would shake everybody's hand. This is how it happened with me. I went over to shake her hand. And I go, "Hello, Sherri, my name is Jake." She goes, "Jake, pleasure to meet you." Just the fact that she said my name back,
Yeah, right.
And it was very engaged, and it was very nice. It was just very brief, and that's really the only interaction I ever had with her directly. But I know she was a big influence on a lot of female wrestlers that I know. I remember when she passed away, there was this 10-woman tag done in honor of her a few days after she passed. And I think like Allison Danger was in it, Sassy Steffi, Amber O'Neal, and maybe Chrissy Vane, and a couple other like indie girls that were kind of like locally. They did like this, I think it was like this 10-woman tag. I can't remember how many women are in it, but I remember they all wore black armbands in honoring of her. And I remember Amber O'Neal was very lucky enough to have a match with her on a Caroline Championship Wrestling show. And I remember her always talking about how much she loved Sherri and just that little interaction she had with her. She was talking about how cool and awesome she was, and how much of an influence she was to her. And I dated a female wrestler that just spoke very highly of her. I remember we watched that Survivor Series 87 match, and just the whole time, like every time Sherri's doing something, like I remember my girlfriend at the time just going, "God, she's so good. She's so good. God, she's so good. God, she's so good." And even when I showed that shoot angle in ECW, or that angle where she's just like giving it to Medusa, she's like, "Oh, she's so good. She's so good." And I think about like, the way female wrestling is treated today. The way it's portrayed today, and just think about how proud she would be of that. And then I start thinking about, like I described earlier, the way Sherri was. She could be a legitimate, physically impactful, emotionally impactful presence, but also too, she came off as strong, but she also had a sexiness about her that wasn't like, like, oh, this is obviously what people's ideal images of sexy are.
Yep.
So sexy was something that, this is how I want to look. I want to have my hair this certain way. I want to put this glitter. I'll do my eye makeup this way. And people would refer to her as Scary Sherri, but it was like, no, I am beautiful because I look like this.
Individuality.
I think of like, girls like Ruby Riott, Sienna, Allison Kay, Chelsea Green, even to my ex-girlfriend Sojo Bolt. I remember her having a cage match against Danny Davis, Nightmare Danny Davis,
yeah.
and Danny Davis used to paint his face and like a lightning bolt, and she did the same exact thing like that, and she was like, oh, any excuse to put face paint on would be like Sherri Martel, you know, like,
right.
and she was definitely a lot of things that she did, especially in Ohio Valley, very heavily influenced. But I think the big thing, to wrap this all up in a nice little bow and put this in a nice little package. To do research for this, I listened to the RF video shooting review for this, and I didn't have time to sit down and watch it on the High Spots Wrestling Network or watch the DVD of it. All I had time to do was convert the download file to an audio file and put it on my iPod for me to listen on my flight back from Connecticut this weekend. And of course I put it on there, and I want to make sure that I had it, so I just kind of skipped to a random part in the middle of the shoot interview, and it was during a part where she was talking about how female wrestling wasn't respected during her time, and she talked about how all the men were thinking of all the women were trying to get with the men and trying to sleep with them. And she said, women are not here to service men. They're here to achieve as much as they possibly can. And I just was like, this is just serendipitous that this is just the one part that I check on this whole interview, and just skips
From
to this
beyond the grave,
this one part. And I think it just sums up her perfectly, what she always fought for and hoped for, female professional wrestling.
Sherri Martel was so good at literally everything wrestling. She was like the Mrs. Perfect, you know, like it doesn't matter what situation you stuck her in, she could work, she could manage, she could talk, she could enhance a moment, and then she could just straight up steal the show. It sucks to see someone with her mind and her ability and her experience to, you know, not be around today. Imagine her as a manager on screen, imagine her as a leader behind screen, you know, as a booker, as a writer, as a teacher, as a coach. I think it's one of the bigger losses for pro wrestling, especially the way things are going now. She was awesome. She was beautiful. She was intense. She was compelling, and she was sensational.
I think one of the biggest compliments I saw while doing research and all of this, I didn't expect it to come up. It was really weird. Looking up all these YouTube clips, you just type in Sensational Sherri or Sherri Martel, and I see what crosses over, and I just hit play a whole bunch and see what all I can get into. And I usually click on the comments because I wanted, maybe somebody's uncle saw something or somebody's cousin worked with her, blah, blah, blah. But if there's one place where somebody will always get buried, no matter how great they are, no matter how much good they've done, it's in YouTube comments. And going through YouTube comments on Sherri, every fucking one was complimentary. Sherri was so sexy. Sherri was the best. Sherri was just superlative. And it was just like, I was like, this is YouTube comments. This is the lowest of the low. These are the people that just shit on everything. And I was like, man, Sherri Martel defeated YouTube comments. So Sherri's shoot really hit me hard. She had a very big heart. She understood how much she fucked up. She put everything on herself, which I think is what hurt so much. She didn't blame other people. She didn't put it on others. Sherri thought she was invincible. This is a quote that hit me. I saw all these women telling you what I'm telling you right now and saying, that is not going to be me. But you know what? It is. And I think she was 46 at this age, and it's just like, fuck. It's just, when you're young and you're hopeful and you're passionate, and it's just, I don't know, other crap in my life right now, just that hit me hard, because she knew that she succeeded. She did great, but she knew she could have done better. She was asked about what she could say to her fans. Sherri said, only thing I could say to the fans is thanks. Thanks for everything. And I hope that at every point of my career, I've brought you, each and every one of you, some type of happiness. I hope it was worth it. It was for me.
If you enjoyed this episode, head over to our Patreon, where you can support this podcast like Juicy Juice used to support PBS programs. Patreon.com/10bellpod. You can also support us for free by leaving us a review. We are at Tim Bell Pod on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube. Drop us a line. Let us know what you think about these episodes. Find us at timbellpod.com. Check out Six Squirrel Studios. If you have a podcast, Don can help you out too. Find Jake at Man Scout Manning on all the social medias. Check out his other podcast, How Did This Get Booked? Micah is JTrotter27 on Twitter, and I am Nicolessa on all the social medias. We're out of time. See you at Slamboree.
Fuck, I haven't thought about Slamboree in a while.
Hi, I'm the Nature Boy Rich Flair. And if you're styling and profiling like I am, you'll head over to patreon.com/TimBellPod where you can help support this podcast. Whoa!